I think this race got so much more interesting because we got that result last night, because we got that exact game and and you can see it already and stuff that's going on in terms of how people are talking about this. What do you make of the fact that he's favored? Like, just, and I'll do a lot on it too, but like, what do you make of that he's now like, it's him and then everybody else?
I think it's right. They have
so you think he's the most likely player to win?
I guess like you could make a case that like
says.
if like Baltimore is going to be the 1 seed and like we don't think that's going to happen, we think Mahomes is still going to be the 1 seed. I don't know.
Be the 2 with a big record.
I guess like if Kansas City won out of like every other team, it feels like Mahomes is very unlikely to win at this point with the way he's, even if Kansas City goes 14-3, he might be unlikely to win. If a team on the other side, like if the Lions win a ton of games or the Niners end up winning out or the Eagles only have 1 loss right now, I do think Hurts is the most likely to win. I'm guessing you disagree with that or you have another player that you like based on the way you frame that. But if they're going to go 15-2, and, you know, I think, like, people can spin narratives any way they want. I can easily spin the narrative, and, like, I'm a big fantasy football player. Like, he's not just, like, why he's such a freaking stud, man. He's not just, like, one of the best quarterbacks. He's also, like, the best short yardage running back ever. Ever! They get down by it's automatic. You're 6 points. It's ridiculous. You go against him in fantasy. Devontae Smith catches that pass at the 1 yard line. You're like, I'm done. Like, they score. Don't even do the play. Just walk to the sideline. 6 points. Send out Elliott for the extra point. I do think he's the most likely to win. I don't know if he's going to win, but I do agree with that. I'm guessing you don't.
No, I play my cards close to the vest. I didn't want to like tip you off how I was feeling one way or the other. I think he's the most likely player to win, but I don't think it's by a lot. I think that this market's going to get really interesting because I actually think Mahomes is very unlikely to win. And Tua is very unlikely to win solely because of perception. And I think this has the chance to be it has a chance to be the most subjective, toxic MVP discussion that we've ever had, because you're going to have like 6 quarterbacks with the same stats. The Eagles are going to have the best record, but I don't think anybody wants to vote for Hurts in like a lot of different kind of voting blocks. I think he's like the basic candidate, quarterback on the best team. Like, it's easy to get there. Also, the numbers aren't great. So, like, you will have, I think, a ton of resistance, and you do already. Like, among, like, people with big followings. He's not the MVP right now. Like, how can that be true off the game that we just watched last night? I think it has a chance to get, and Toxic, honestly, could sometimes create really good betting opportunities, because I do think there are a couple other ways this can go. So, yeah, just when we think about MVP, I'll tell you kind of how I see the tiers shaping up, and then I think it would be actually really fun to play out if the Eagles do this, who wins?
Okay.
I think that's actually like the most fun way to do it, because this isn't like anybody showing up right now like the bet has to be this. Be like, actually, like you gotta figure out who's going to win like 3 or 4 really key games coming up to really know like who you think would win in those situations. Unless you think it's Hurts no matter what, which I guess is possible, but it doesn't seem very likely. Okay, so
they can still lose the division pretty easily.
I don't know about easily. I mean, they're a pretty big favorite to win the division, right? Not only easily, but it'll happen sometimes.
They could lose to Buffalo and they could lose to Dallas.
Yeah, and they could lose to San Francisco. Definitely. So those are 3 very tough games. Those are their 3 next games. I think Hurts is the most likely player to win because it's by far the easiest case to make. If they're the one by a couple games and he's the quarterback of the team and they're 15-2, it's the easiest, and you will read a lot of social media and hear a lot of yelling about like EPA, like all like advanced metric cases for
all this stuff.
A lot of other quarterbacks. What I frequently find in these situations, and it could be true, this will be a good litmus test, by the way, for this theory, is that there is always a silent majority in these situations that will actually vote for the thing that's easiest to understand, and they're just not the ones doing the shouting. And the people that are doing the shouting are the ones that are upset that it's not their guy, that it's not Brock Purdy, and it's not Dak Prescott, and it's not Josh Allen, and it's not somebody else. Guess what? Like, beneath that, there's a silent majority that's all just like, yeah, Jalen Hurts. He's like the best player. He's like quarterback of the best team. They have the best record by far. This is always how it's done. Yeah. So, and in the NBA, the advanced metric community, like it's kind of seeped into the voting a little bit. You can see it in terms of like, we haven't had a weird MVP in a while because it's always like, well, who's number one in all the plus minuses? Like, that's just the guy who wins. This will be in it. And people will be like, well, EPA has been kind of predictive. It kind of has, and it kind of hasn't. And it hasn't been around that long to be predictive. So I think this is like a really good litmus test of, okay, like maybe the guy who's number one in EPA wins. the most likely player to be that would be Brock Purdy at the end of the year. And there's certainly people just shouting his accolades today. It's just like, all right, cool. Is there a silent majority that's just like, what? Like Hurts has especially, and they're going to play in a couple weeks and we'll talk about it. Like if X team wins, what happens? So my tiers right now would be like Hurts is the most likely player to win. I think Lamar is the second most likely player to win because they can be the one. He was ahead. But everyone who wrote anything in the middle of the year, including some people who were like either vote or connected to people who vote, said Lamar Jackson. So like, I have to wait that. Again, who cares what I think? When people tell you what they're thinking, just believe them. Okay, like he has to be given consideration here. And I think the third tier is Purdy and Dak. I think that's like, if things get a little weird and a little messed up record-wise, then these two players have a chance to win. And if they don't, if the records don't get messed up very much for the top teams, I don't think they have a chance to win. So that's kind of how I see the tiers, but it's kind of like we can play out the permutations too, right? Like, and I think it all depends on the Eagles. What do the Eagles do? Okay, permutation 1. The Eagles win all the games. Hurts every time, not even close. Well, probably unanimous. Gets every vote.
Yeah, but what about,
and like you can argue with that,
PER?
EPA, whatever, throw it in the trash. They win all the games, he wins. Definitely. Okay. They lose to the Niners, and other than that, both teams win all their games the rest of the year. These are the things that I think people are thinking about when they yell Purdy, or when they like, I bought a lot of Dak Prescott. They're going to play the Cowboys in a few weeks. Like, we can play it out where like, what if the loss is to one of those two guys and they play really well in the game and everybody else wins all the games? Then what happens? And then I actually think it gets kind of interesting. I think that's the nuanced discussion.
I think it would be Hurts still.
I think it's at least not 100%. Like, if they win all their games, it's 100%. I think that's when things start getting into it, right? So it's like, so okay, but I think even if it's okay, lose to the Niners, beat the Cowboys, win every other game, you have 2 losses at the end of the season. I can't tell you like if they lose to Purdy that Purdy wins, or if they lose to Dak that Dak wins. Like, I think it takes more than that. I think Hurts still wins in those permutations. So you got to drop 2 of the next 3. That's how things.
Can I try and simplify it?
Yeah.
Is it like quarterback of the 1 seed in the NFC or Lamar Jackson? If Lamar has like big stats and like Baltimore
because Detroit
gets there,
could be the one.
Okay, and you don't think Goff?
0.
Campbell
would never bet him. Yeah, Campbell will win Coach of the Year. So I think like, okay, if the Eagles win all their games, it's Hurts. If they win all their games but one, and it's to Purdy or Dak, and both teams involved win all the rest of their games, I think it still Hurts, even though people will yell a lot. Okay, like, let's say they lose 2. Let's say it's Sunday, and it's to one of the other contenders. Now what? And that's when things have a chance to get really nuts. Yeah, that's what you need if you want this to get like really crazy. I think if it's just like one more Eagles loss, I don't think it even matters who it's to. And from a betting standpoint, like if this is why, like, okay, yeah, Purdy can win. Honestly, like, you should just be slamming the Niners in that game then and get the money then. Like, because if they lose that game, he's never going to beat Hurts. Like, it's never going to happen. Hurts is going to beat him head to head, have a better record. They're going to be like, well, Brock Purdy's EPA. Like, that's going to do it. Like, no, people, like, again, I really think there's a silent majority that's just, yeah, it's Hurts. And you can tweet all you want about the other guys. Awesome. Sounds great. So I think from a betting standpoint, you do want it to get nuts because that's how the big prices come in. But at the same time, like, if you need the head-to-head win, you need Purdy to beat him. You need Dak to beat him. Now that we're here, now that they beat the Chiefs, which stinks because I bought Dak, like, hoping the Chiefs would win and I wouldn't have to do, like, if you think it's Dak, now my advice is going to be, now that they beat the Chiefs, now my advice is like, you just got to bet the Cowboys in that game. Like, you just got to bet the Cowboys, because if they have to win in order for him to win MVP. And there's a way that if they win, he still may not win, but he has to win for your ticket to be live. So, like, you might as well just bet him in the game then. And I think that's how you have to play it with Purdy and Dak going forward. They have to win the head-to-head now. Like, there's no other option, I think. And honestly, like, statistics be damned kind of in that discussion. The case for Hurts, the easiest case by far, is like, yeah, like, big record, sure. But, like, if he has a big record and someone else does, their numbers are probably better. Like, what will we remember about this season? Like, what will the season be defined by in, like, a few, like, short, like, kind of points? this play. Everyone's now trying it. Some teams are bad at it. The Eagles are the best at it. This guy's the best at it. This guy scores every time, and they're the best team. Like, this is the defining play of the season, this play that they run, and he's the guy who runs it. So, like, yeah, the numbers aren't as good. Also, they're 15-2, and he runs the defining play of the season. Like, it's again, you'd be like, well, it's narrative driven. Welcome to this entire discussion the rest of the season. This is what it's going to be. This is what it's going to be. His numbers won't be as good as the other guys. They won't be. Like, did you see the stat line last night? They got 3 impossible games coming up. You think the game is going to be way better? This is kind of what it's going to be. It won't be rainy. The Chiefs' defense is good. So is the Niners' defense. So is Dallas's defense. Like, this is probably what it's going to be. So the narrative's literally going to be, he's the quarterback of the best team. They have this play. They win all these games. And everyone else is going to throw stats back at you. And that's what the argument's going to be like. So get ready for that for a while.
Do you think he can catch Jokic?
Is there a racial component to this that perhaps we should bring in? Because that always makes everything better.
No, because like when you say like the MVP race is going to get toxic, I'm just thinking like, is this going to be like MVP, NBA MVP? And like I'm not even. Well,
that was the most
like racial.
That was literally if you vote Jokic, you're a racist. That was literally the narrative last year. Yeah, so like that's which hurt. And Embiid won. Yeah, and
then Jokic won the title, and now everyone wants to vote for him.
Jokic won the title, and he's inarguably the best player in the league, and it's not even close. Yeah, that's right. So, that's good.
So yeah, I think this is I guess you're right. Like it is kind of shaping up to be like a wild MVP race this year. So I read the odds going into the last break. You asked me kind of like who do I think's most likely to win. I think it's Hurts, even if the stats aren't there.
I agree.
For kind of the reasons that we laid out. Like they're gonna have a huge 1-loss record, and he's just I get it. Like the passing, they get down by the goal line, they score 100% of the time. It's honestly like. Look, I know this is not like the betting conversation, but like this is also like kind of a fantasy thing, right? There has never been a single player. I've been playing fantasy football literally since the mid-90s, literally since the mid-1990s. There's never been a situation where like they get into this sequence here, and you know exactly what's going to happen before it happens every single time. It is incontrovertible. He's Thanos. It is inevitable. It's absolutely ridiculous. And maybe it's like, oh well, it's Jason Kelce in the offensive line. Great, Jason Kelce. You don't, but you don't start Jason Kelce in fantasy. You start Jalen Hurts.
And you don't give MVP to offensive lines.
That's right.
So like that's what happens, right? By the way, plenty of quarterbacks won MVP because they had great offensive lines. By the way, like no, that's no new thing at all. The Eagles like really in the driver's seat here to be the best team in the league from a record standpoint, and as a result of that, being on that track, best team in the league, Jalen Hurts is the favorite to win Most Valuable Player. We'll do some of your bets in a second. College football, obviously, not even for the weekend, for every day coming up, and also NFL, Thanksgiving, and Sunday. But just, do you agree? Do you think Jalen Hurts is the most likely player to win Most Valuable Player?
He's not the MVP of the league. He might not even be the MVP on his own team. I think this is so dumb now that we basically, and I say we because I'm a part of it, we in the media have this conversation every week. And we basically land on, who do we land on every week? The quarterback of like the sexiest team now. Like that's basically the conversation every week. Remember 2 weeks ago, it was Lamar Jackson. 4 weeks ago, it was Brock Purdy. Now it's Jalen Hurts. And look, I think A.J. Brown's actually, he didn't play well last night, but A.J. Brown to date, to like Sunday, Monday morning, was the best player on the Eagles. Jalen Hurts had a sensational game, including a dime of a throw to the end zone that got ruled down at the 1 yard line. He was the best player clearly last night. He has not been the best player on his team, though, all season long. And I would not bet Jalen Hurts 5-2. I think, Prescott, maybe, if they can win. Like, if you're looking for numbers right now, clearly I'm not going to tell you bet Hurts, Lamar, Mahomes, because those guys are all 4-1 or less. Prescott 15-1 if he keeps throwing the ball like this and the Cowboys keep winning. And look, you guys know I have Tyreek Hill. I've got him at 125-1. He is the best player on a Dolphins team that might win the East and win 12 games. And if they do that, it's more him than it is Tua. This guy is just unconscious right now. What did he have, 130, 140 yards last week? Again, he's going to break the receiving record. I know that a receiver has never won it. But in a year where the quarterback play has been kind of average, I mean, the Browns guys have more points than the Chiefs. How do you give Patrick Mahomes the MVP? Jalen Hurts almost has 10 interceptions. How do you give him the MVP? These guys are not the best player in the league right now. I think this is as wide open as it's been, and why not let a receiver come in there this year? Now, yeah, I want to cash my ticket, but if Tyreek Hill gets 2,000 yards and 15, 17 touchdowns on a first-place Dolphins team, to me, he's the MVP.